Hi, my name is Pete Murray. I'm from Firaxis Games, the studio that's working on Civilization Beyond Earth. I actually came to Firaxis kind of through a roundabout way. They needed some help doing marketing stuff. The first game I worked on with Firaxis was Civilization 5. It's a fantastic place to work. Every day it's more like, I don't know, what you dreamed you would do when you were a kid instead of a job. So I get to come here and see the really awesome Shebo Space Center and talk about Beyond Earth. Sid Meier's the creative director at Firaxis, and he's the guy responsible for mentoring the designers. He plays the games and gives them feedback on that. He's involved with his own stuff at Firaxis as well too. So he's been working very closely with David McDonough and Will Miller, who are the co-lead designers of Beyond Earth, and he really does sort of help them grow as designers and help make sure they're building games the way we are kind of famous for at Firaxis. Making sure they have that one more turn feeling for them and really keeping you up until 4 o'clock in the morning. We want to continue to do that. So I was talking to Dr. Stephen Kane here. He's with us today. He's the gentleman who discovered Kepler 186f, the Earth-like exoplanet that's got us all up in an uproar. And talking to him and finding out what all we know about exoplanets and them occurring as frequently as they do in star systems around the galaxy, and just the sheer number of Earth-like worlds that may be out there is just absolutely amazing. I mean, we have this tendency to think of ourselves as alone and unique in the universe, and if there's millions of Earth-like worlds, are there millions of potentially life-sustaining planets, and what does that mean? And that's part of the joy about this genre of going to another planet and settling it is it really creates a sense that you're really not alone in the universe, and knowing that there's hard science to back what we've all been thinking on the science fiction front for years is just really, really cool. So it's a great meld of both things that are fun and things that are true. The world needs more of that. Health works very similarly to happiness in Civilization 5 in that it's the global limiter for the growth of your civilization. And there are buildings and virtues that you can develop that give you more of it, and various activities that you do will reduce it as well. I don't think it's entirely accurate to say it's just a replacement for it, because there are different systems at play with it in that. But yeah, the idea of it being the limiter of how far your civilization can expand, so we can avoid, paving the entire planet with your cities. Can you tame the aliens? Well, sort of. So we have what we call affinities in the game, and one of these is the Harmony affinity. And Harmony factions believe that human beings should be something like a native species for this planet. So they have a lot of tools that, for example, reduce the aggression that aliens have towards them. That decays a lot faster for Harmony-aligned factions than for other ones. Harmony also gets access to a couple of unique units, one of which is called the Xenoswarm, and that represents you learning enough about the alien ecology that you can grow your own bugs to fight people with. And these are one of my favorite units in the game because they are a cheap to build, very effective swarm unit. So you send in a big old pile of Xenoswarm backed up by a bunch of Marines in mid-game, you're going to be able to start bum rushing a lot of people, especially if they're horning in on your territory. They also have access to Xeno Cavalry, which is where you learn to ride the raptors of the planet, which is every bit as awesome as it sounds. And then their capstone unit is a life form called the Xeno Titan. And what's interesting is that's not an alien life form. That is a kaiju-sized creature that you grow in a vat, and then you send it at your enemies to crush them. And if you don't think that's awesome, I don't know what to tell you. Check your pulse. The aliens aren't sentient per se. There's kind of this global consciousness that controls them, and that has an attitude towards you, and it has an attitude towards the other settlers. So if there's some other guy who's shooting every alien he sees, then all of the aliens on the planet are going to like all humans less. They're really not going to like that guy, but they're not going to like you a whole lot either. So they're not sentient, they're pre-sentient, but they're pretty crafty. Like the raptors, for example, will wait and they'll pick off isolated trade units, they'll pick off workers that aren't protected, they'll wait. The sea dragons will attack ships at sea, especially trading vessels and things like that. You would prefer not to have them attacked. And the siege worms, which are one of my favorite aliens in the game, they move very slowly, but they pillage all of the tile improvements they pass through. And one of the covert ops you can pull as a Harmony-aligned faction is to plant attractors in somebody else's city that brings siege worms in to wreck all of the tile improvements around their city. So it's like, oh, sorry, look, you've got worms. That's a really fun one to pull off. At this point, multiplayer is going to function very similarly to the way that it does in Civilization V, and right now mods are not part of that. Not directly. It's assumed that you have a direction for your faction, and your faction has bought into it to a level that somebody else's ideology they might be aware of, but it's not attractive for them. And so in late game, most of the conflict revolves around whether or not you share an affinity. Political conflict revolves around whether you share an affinity with somebody or you're a different affinity from them. Religion, systems like that are not implemented per se the way they were in Civilization V, because what we wanted to make sure was that the systems that we felt were critical for Beyond Earth were implemented as solidly as we could. And we didn't want to just put Civ V's religious system in just because we could. It didn't seem to make sense.